Well, good morning and welcome to Northern Light Spiritual Center. My name is Reverend Vaughan Amaré, and I am here with Reverend Michael Amaré, who will be leading our meditation and our reading. I'm going to be talking today a little bit about how teamwork makes dream work, since this month's series is around the wonder of work. Here at Northern Lights, we are a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. Northern Light Spiritual Center offers practical and spiritual tools to create positive changes in our lives. And our promise to inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. We also acknowledge that much of what we know of this country today, including its culture, economic growth and development, throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horror of transatlantic trafficking of their people, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We also name the Asian and Chicano people who toiled with little recognition. We are indebted to all of their labor and their sacrifices, and we must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that can still be felt and witnessed today. Please join me for our opening song, In This Very Room, by Ron and Carol Harris. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. For Spirit, sweet Spirit, is in this very room. In this very room.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a time that we set aside each service to center ourselves, to release everything that's come before this moment, the past week, whatever's happened, and allowing ourselves to get comfortable as possibly, get as comfortable as we possibly can. And allow our body just to relax. Allow our mind to relax. Allow our whole being to relax. And if you're comfortable, I just invite you to close your eyes. And in this, I would invite us now to each take we're going to take a few nice deep breaths. A nice deep breath in, and hold it, and release it. Another nice deep breath in, allowing it to go down, extend the diaphragm, and release. One more breath in. And release. Today I just invite you, we're going to do a quiet meditation. I just want to invite each of us to ourselves to say, be still and know. Allow yourself to be still, to relax. Allow your body to let go of all the tension, the worries, the woes, everything that may be going on within your body. And focus on being still and knowing that you are one with the divine, that you are one with all life. So be still and know. Be still and know that you are the expression of the divine. Expressing itself through you here on this earth. Be still and know that you are love. You are the love that God is. And know that any time during the day, during the week, that you can allow yourself to stop and to be still and know. And so when you're comfortable, wiggle your toes and fingers and allow yourself to come back to the room and open your eyes. And so it is. today's reading is from Science of Mind magazine again. It's from September 18th, 2011. And I find that these, no matter how far back they go, they're still, appropriate and to this day. And this one is called Praying Proactively. Now, if I can get my vision here. The world in which we live is the exact record of our thoughts. That was by Emma Curtis Hopkins. It is wonderful to contemplate the mental attitude of people who are not afraid to believe their prayers will be answered. And that's from the Science of Mind, page 161. All healing is spiritual because there is, of course, nothing that is not spirit. But by the term spiritual healing, we mean a practice that employs all thoughts and words to effect a change. The thoughts animate and enliven, and words are selected to give the thoughts some structure. This entire thought word technique is called prayer treatment or mind treatment. While the practice is ancient, those names go back less than 200 years to the foundations of modern New Thought. Treatment may be done silently or audibly, and for oneself or another, though in the latter case it is the one speaking the word who is treating his or her own mind in acceptance of the showing forth of health and goodness in another. Treatment is effective as a healing tool, but is even more remarkable as preventative mental medicine. It's good to pray when nothing is wrong. Amen to that. And especially when everything is just wonderful. This is because the mysterious ingredient in the thought word mix that is evoked by thought and eludes capture in words is feeling. When we're already feeling strong and well, the overflow of that energy can be put to excellent use. Whereas in moments of duress, we may have to dig deep to find it. Training ourselves to remember to pray proactively is like building any other positive habit. And there's no sweat or strain or deprivation, just a quiet, peaceful knowing that all good is here now. And the affirmation is, today I practice speaking my word with deep conviction. I declare that peace of mind, clear thinking, enthusiasm, and confidence are mine to feel and to express. And so it is.
Oh, so you said the right way today.
Oh, you reckon?
So today's talk and today's experience is going to be a little different because I'm sprinkling music throughout the whole thing. So rather than just simply starting with a song and ending with a song, there are going to be songs coming through because sometimes songs have the ability to move us emotionally, and I want us to tap into that as we are reorienting our thoughts and feelings about things.
Are you ready?
Yep. So we're going to start with We Are Family by Sister Sledge.
They're still performing.
repeating lyric, "We are family." I identified that today's talk is teamwork makes for dreamwork. And to play with that idea, I'm going to have us look both at what are some of the teams where we find ourselves, and how do we orient ourselves? How do we align our thinking, our feelings, our heart, so that the power of teamwork then evolves? Dreamwork. Michael has been speaking about work that is satisfying, work that creates a sense of wonder. What I'd like us to pause for a minute and consider is that so much of the work that we do is actually embedded in a huge social network. That there's so much going on, and we may not even think about it. Jeffrey was talking about enjoying enchiladas, about enjoying enchiladas and the difference between the frozen and the fresh. And for every one of those enchiladas, somebody has put it together. He talked about going and getting the maza. Getting the maza. And somebody had to grow the maza, and somebody had to bring the maza. So we often neglect to recognize all of the ways that the world conspires to give us what we want and need. I wanted to start with the "we are family" because sometimes we take for granted that our very first experience of team, our very first experience of the social world was the family where we found ourselves. Now, that family may be the family into which we were born. It might have been a family into which we've been adopted. It might be a family that we have chosen. It can be all of those. It can be some of those. Or we can look back and say, I wish it had been this. With the notion of that family, sometimes we look at our family array and that's where we landed. So we can find ourselves believing that teams and social things just happen to us. I know that Reba has talked a lot about how her family's values shaped her and shaped her siblings. And those values have continued to press her and have her move through the world and make choices. Sometimes we make choices affirming what we heard and what we learned. Sometimes we make choices that say, I'm not going there. I'm not doing that anymore. Michael received an invitation from his brother about going to church at the Lutheran church where he grew up. And the intent of his brother was this notion of, I'm really finding a lot of comfort here, and I'd love if you could be there with me. But Michael identified, it's not really going to work for me because that particular church finds me as a gay person, finds me as a queer person outside of the bounds of where the divine embraces me. Wicked. When he looked it up online, they used the word effeminate. And effeminate is one of the ways of being wicked. So we get to look at what happens in our life and how we choose to respond to that. I'm seeing Stephanie, and I think about the amazing sacrifices that her mother and father made. And I think about the amazing sacrifice that Stephanie learned from them, and then she turned back. When her mother's kidney failed, Stephanie didn't appear to give a pause, to think, I can do that. I can give my kidney so that my mom has more time. And I know absolutely that Stephanie embodied what it meant to make that personal sacrifice, to give up from her me, from that I, so that her mother could keep on going. And her mother kept on going, and her mother was somebody who was just this fount of generosity, this fount of joyful liveliness. That was what the Team Stephanie experienced. Now, Stephanie doesn't have any brothers and sisters. She's the only daughter. She's the only child. And yet, that experience of family gave her a fundamental experience of what team meant. It's different than when you have those siblings. I think about my sister. My sister did the same thing that Stephanie did for her mom. My sister gave up one of her kidneys so that I could keep on living in a more powerful, living in a freer way. When my kidney failed, I was on dialysis. And I had to go to the dialysis center 3 times a week. And it was usually about 4 to 5 hours that I'd be getting on the machine and sitting in the machine. But that experience was also one where I saw teamwork happening. It happened to me. There were all of these people there whose regard and whose concern was about keeping me and keeping the others at the center alive and well. It wasn't something where I could just take my arm and I could just stick the needle in and then stick the other needle in, because there's 2 needles. One goes into the body and takes the blood out, and then it goes through the machine and then it comes back in. I had people who were very carefully getting me registered. And then I had to be pretty still. It wasn't something that, I couldn't do like exercise in my chair, because any movement whatsoever unsettles how the blood gets out and gets in. So one of the pieces about working with others is it lets us see the world is so much bigger than we are. Teamwork lets us see that the world is bigger than me, than the individual I am. So perhaps our families taught us that. Perhaps the people that we have created and turned into family have taught us that. That's the 2 things that I would have us consider with this point about team as happening. Our lives give us teams. Teams in which to work. Teams in which to find our way. Teams that enable us to see that the world is bigger than just me, bigger than just each of us as individuals. So we're going to move to our next song, which is We're All in This Together from High School the Musical. So if you want to get up and dance, you can.
Come on, let's have some fun all together. We're there for each other every time.
So, we're all in this together. I want us to consider one of the elements of teams is that a lot of times there are teams that we choose. In that story, the High School Musical, there was a closed group, and they had a way of doing things. They had an expectation for how things were going to happen. And a new girl moves into the school, and someone who's been there engaging in athletics, when she gets there, it evokes something in him, and he decides to do something different. He decides to go out and try out for the school musical. Now, this was horrifying because there was a pair of siblings who were always the leads in the musicals. And their lead was pretty much taken for granted. Sometimes with teams, we shake things up. Sometimes with teams, we take some risks. We do things that we wanted to do. A lot of times, teams, we have to step outside of ourselves into something different. When the new girl decided to perform in the musical, she wasn't somebody who was an out there kind of person. But this was a choice to maybe open herself to change. And the boy, he could change the path that from the path that he always followed. He hadn't been part of that musical drama group. He had another group where he belonged. And he decided to step outside of the group where he had fitted in and be in a new group. I'd like us for a moment to think about what teams and what groups we have joined that stretched us. When have we made choices and decisions? When have we chosen to do something a little? And as we make those different choices, we're able to reach for goals that were bigger than what we were reaching for before. I have this question. Do you feel that you and your dreams are enough? If yes, how did that sense of enough grow in you? And if not, can you reframe your sense of yourself to be enough and accept who you are becoming? With joining teams, I know Reba is part of a group that creates greater wisdom, greater knowledge, greater clarity. And this isn't because these are things that Reba knows everything, but Reba is somebody that's constantly opening herself to more knowledge. Constantly opening herself to more ideas. To being able to ask, is this all there is or is there more? And then bringing about a greater sense of understanding. Because within the group, there are people who just make mistakes. Now, I'm sure that we can imagine people that make mistakes in their thinking. So what are the teams that we choose? Obviously, a team that I've been involved with is the bargaining team with Seattle's Education Association. You haven't seen much of me because I have been, Michael has characterized himself as a bargaining widower. A bargaining widow. Because I would be either like on the computer when parts of it were virtual, and then I'd be going to either the John Stanford Center for Educational Excellence and then I was going to the machinist hall, and then I was going to the Washington Labor Council, Washington State Labor Council. And I would be gathering with all of these different people. I believe that there were 30-some people on this team. And in becoming a member of the team, there were things that I knew and I could bring forward into the team. And there were other people who had their own things, their own expertise, their own knowledge, their own voices that they were bringing up. When each of us have been on teams, can we see that not only are we reaching for something together, but we are expanding ourselves? One of the things that struck me in that whole bargaining process is that our group was very conscious, and deliberate about how to engage with each other. We had this practice where if something was brought up, we would come to a process called consensus. And with consensus, you would consider, so how is this? And if I embrace this, is this something that the people I represent can live with? Or do I have to stand and say, no, we just can't go here? Or would we say, yes, this is perfect? So we would say, okay, I'm going to give it a green light. That can go ahead. I'm going to give it a yellow light. I'm not entirely comfortable with that. I'm going to give it a red light. And that has got to stop. We had a way of looking at our ideas where we would decide, is this the bottom line? Can we mess around with this? Can we negotiate this? Or is this as far as we can go? Where is it that we might be able to have a little leeway? And this kind of process created a sense of trust, created a sense of understanding, because you start to see how people make decisions. And to be honest, I feel really fortunate to have been a part of the team I was part of, because I looked at the other side, the side with which we were negotiating, and what I had said to a reporter is that I had the advantage. I was standing for the 6,000 people that are part of the Seattle Education Association. The people on the other side were bringing their individual department. They were bringing their individual value, and they really hadn't taken the time to see how it all fit together. So one person would say, would make a claim, and then another person from another group would make a completely opposite claim. And how do they come to a point of agreement when they're offering things that just don't match? Well, one of the ways that they do it is that somebody yells. And they try to shut other people down. So teams can operate like that. But what we can bring to the teams is we can decide how we respond to the power dynamics that are going on in a team. The lead of our team was so deliberate. One day, when we were supposed to start negotiating, the yelling team member spent 10 minutes. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. Spent 10 minutes trying to let us know the level of disappointment that they experienced about being left off of an email. Michael's using berated. That this person was on an email. Now, not only did they just, it wasn't enough to say I was off the email. I'd like to be on the email again. Wouldn't that be great? No, it was 10 minutes. You don't know how it felt to be left off. The other side of me, the bubble over my head is, you know what? I think, ma'am, everybody has had an experience of being left off. I don't think that this is entirely as rare and outrageous as you're characterizing it. But 10 minutes of going on about it. So our team just simply, we're like, okay, that's how they are treating us, and that's how they're treating the 6,000 members. So we just got all up together and walked. Because we weren't going to say that that's okay. And that's what I would invite when we look at teams and we look at how teams engage. Can we decide what is okay? Can we decide what is it that we will live with? Can we look at a consensus idea? Can we look at where our values align? And can we stand up for ourselves? And can we stand up for the people we represent? So, there are teams we choose. And within those teams that we choose, we can reach for something bigger than we ever imagined. We can dream larger than we ever imagined. And so now we're going to go to the next song. And I think you'll recognize this one.
Sounded like a harangue.
It was very much of a harangue. So you might have heard that before. The notion of we are champions brings me to the point that sometimes teams find us. In that song by Queen, in response to the difficulties that life imposes, do we declare our championhood? Or do we take the back door and name ourselves losers? What do we choose to call ourselves? And our relationship in our teams can make a difference with that. I want to rely on a story that is very different than the song, but is aligned in a way that seems very close to the song. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the story of Shrek. And Shrek is an ogre. And Shrek is very happy living alone in the forest, occasionally going out, ripping apart farms, and having people come after him with their pickaxes and their pitchforks and their fire, and he would growl back at them, and then they would get scared and they would run away. Shrek was extremely joyful living his life like this. And at the beginning of the movie, there's this picture book of a princess, and he takes the picture book of the princess and uses it for toilet paper. Now, Shrek is not someone that we would think of as a likely hero. We may not think of ourselves as likely heroes or heroines. But in the story of Shrek, things turn around when the person who's in charge of Far, Far Away decides that there needs to be an end to all of this fairy tale nonsense, and uses the guards to round them up and dumps them all at Shrek's property. And one of those dumpies is a little creature, a talking donkey. And the talking donkey is somebody who is curiously willing to help Shrek, because Shrek wants to get rid of this circus that's happening on Shrek's property. So he goes to the land of Far, Far Away, and he is given the mission of rescuing a princess, because the person in charge of Far, Far Away is not royalty. But they learn from a mirror, from an enchanted mirror, that if they marry a princess, that will make them royal. So Shrek starts on this journey to rescue Fiona, the lovely princess locked away in a tower, hidden and cared for by, or guarded by a dragon. And there are all kinds of people who have gone to rescue Fiona without any success. I tell all of this because the point of the story is that Shrek is a very unlikely hero going to rescue this unlikely princess. And he doesn't do it alone. He does it with the donkey. And the donkey, to no end, irritates him every step of their journey.
He doesn't want to go either.
I'd like us to take a moment and think about those teammates who irritate us to no end. To think about those people who have gotten thrown into our lives who are like, oh, why are you here? I can barely tolerate myself, much less you. Sometimes our teams find us, and the people on the teams are the most unlikely. In the song, We Are the Champion, he has fame and fortune and everything. That's good, but it hasn't all been the bed of roses that everybody thinks that it has been. Shrek creates this team, and the princess Fiona is a little startled by the unusual way that she finds herself getting rescued. She had a picture in her mind what her rescue would look like, and it did not look like Shrek the Ogre and Donkey. And the other element that plays in the background but comes increasingly forward is nobody had any idea that the dragon who was keeping Fiona locked away would fall in love with the donkey. And basically, the donkey could influence this powerful guarding creature to do things that it was not willing to do before this whole adventure. When teams find us, something new arises. Something that is bigger than we ever imagined. Shrek, who was completely happy, who thought the whole idea of falling in love was like worth toilet paper for wiping yourself, found himself reluctantly attached to this princess. And the other element about the princess was that a curse had been cast on her, and at night she turned into an ogre too. But she was so ashamed of herself that she didn't want anybody to know, but the donkey knew. And the donkey, because he was such a loyal, good friend, didn't betray Fiona's trust. Sometimes the people that are teammates do surprising things because they have characteristics and they have qualities that we don't expect. So the teams that find us can bring us qualities, can bring us elements that were never available. Now, if you haven't seen Shrek, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but let's just say that the donkey's love, the dragon, helps out. And let's just say that Shrek and Fiona might end up together in a way that we might not have anticipated. We're not. So teams can find us. And I want us to think of this question. Who in our life needs to have their dreams affirmed? And sometimes these dreams are dreams that we're not even aware of. But by going on these journeys, the dreams become more evident. Who near you is taking a risk and needs reminding that others are watching with admiration and awe? Who needs help seeing they aren't simply exposed, but radiant? So we go to the next song. This is Lean on Me. And again, if you care to, you could sing along, because I'm sure you all know this.
Shades of last week's talk, Parker.
somebody to lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Call me if you need a friend. Call me if you need a friend. If you ever need a friend, call me. 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 If you need a friend, call me.
So with that idea, lean on me, a fundamental central element of teams is the ability to ask for and to receive help. We may inadvertently create teams by our vulnerability. So much of Western culture is about our invulnerability, about being enough. About being independent, about doing it on our own. You've heard the expression, there's no I in team. Teamwork is about connecting and intersecting and being able to go that extra mile that we couldn't do. My dad used to run on a relay team. And as a member of the relay team, it took all 4 of the participants to be part of that event. It was not something that was completed by any single one of them. It took all 4 of them. Again, I go back to Stephanie's mom. Stephanie's mom continued to live because Stephanie was willing to give up herself physically. And with that giving of herself physically, it was also, it's a part of her. When my sister made the same choice, she learned that I had gone skydiving with Michael, and her first reaction was not, woo, I'm so happy. It was like, well, you could have risked that kidney. And then when she thought about it, she's like, if I didn't have you have that kidney, then you wouldn't be alive to do that. You couldn't have that experience. Teams are also about the place where we can be vulnerable, where we can ask for and receive help, where others can ask for help from us and we can give it. Muhammad is said to have said the person's true wealth is the good that they can do in the world. A person's true wealth is the good that they can do in the world. And the good is not just giving, it's also that notion of receiving. Because sometimes another person having the opportunity to give to us creates a space that they've never had before, creates an experience in their life. The Buddha said, set your heart on doing good, do it over and over again, and you will be filled with joy. Doing good isn't just about putting out. Doing good is also about receiving. Being on the bargaining team, we received, we would make proposals and we'd receive proposals back. A lot of times the proposals that came back were just our proposals and they were crossed out. And in normal negotiation, you're supposed to give some kind of answer, but it's just rejects. Cross, cross, cross. Page, page, page. Cross, cross, cross. Page, page, page. Now, sometimes the human part of me was a little bit bitter. And a little bit like, I can't believe this, that they're doing this. This is so inappropriate. Fortunately, there were other people. I was on a team that others could kind of talk me off of the edge because I was irritated. Our leader was somebody who could just keep bouncing back. Judy Hawkins was like Elastigirl. Anything could happen and she could receive it and she could turn it around. And when she felt overwhelmed, the one or two times that happened, she could lean into the team and she was rebounded by others. We had each other to make it through. And so we would keep getting things crossed out and we would keep changing up our things. So maybe they'll take it this way. Maybe they'll take it this way. Maybe they'll take it this way. And what we found was that when we tried to have it so that they thought it was their idea, then they would take it. So when we gave them, they're like, oh, of course, that's what I wanted. You finally saw what I wanted. But we had to frame what we wanted through the lens of what they wanted. We had to be willing to give up our stance to take a different position. How often does that happen in our own lives where we have to be able to be flexible enough to imagine something different? The teams that we create are places where we can ask for and receive help. So to summarize, there are 4 things. Teams simply happen to us, like our families. There are teams that we choose. And when we choose these teams, we can choose things that are bigger than we ever imagined before. Sometimes teams find us. Circumstances arise and that teammate is right there. And our first response was, well, couldn't you be somewhere else? But that teammate is there for a reason. And finally, we create teams by becoming vulnerable, by willing to both give and receive. So I'm going to have us end with this song by Bruno Mars, and it's Count on Me. And then after that, I'm going to have us do conclude with an affirmation. So Maestro, hit Bruno Mars, Count on Me.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are. Find out what we're made of. When we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. You'll always have my shoulder when you cry. I'll never let go, never say goodbye. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. You can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
So, with the teams in our lives where we can count, where we can make ourselves accountable, where we can count on others, I offer this affirmation. So, I'm going to say it once and I'll break it down, and then I'm going to repeat it with you 3 times. So, the affirmation is the divine dream. So, try it, the divine dream.
The divine dream
Awakens through every team. Awakens through every team in my life.
in my life.
So let's do it all together. The divine dream
The divine dream
awakens through every team
awakens through every team
in my life.
in my life.
Okay, now we'll do it our second time. The divine dream
The divine dream
awakens through every team
awakens through every team
in my life.
in my life.
And last but not least, the divine dream
The divine dream
awakens through every team
awakens through every team
in my life.
in my life.
And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you, Reverend Vaughan, for that team building exercise. It is amazing, you know. I like the one that the teams that we fall into. And I've fallen into a lot of different teams. And the idea about the one, for a long time I didn't like that song, Lean on Me, because it was somebody that used that song and I somehow just irritated me, like the fingers on a chalkboard, you know. But over the years I've come to like that song, because we got to be there for others to lean on us, and they have to be there for us to lean on them, because, you know, it is a reciprocal universe. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Next week we will be out of town, but Reverend Pamela will be doing it, and it will be a Zoom only. So I know that was somebody in the peanut gallery over here. So if you need the address, I can get it to you. Let's see what else is there. We're coming up on the end of September already. I can't believe that. I don't know where this summer went. And fall is definitely in the air. It's nipping at our toes and everything else. So I just want to thank everyone for being here, for your love and support in whatever way you've shown support for Northern Lights Spiritual Center. This is sacred ground. whether you're here physically or through the ethers. You're partaking in a sacred event, a sacred moment in your life, in your week. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to share that, to be a part of that. And so with that, I just give thanks for everyone. I give thanks for the life that I have and the life that you are. For we are all connected. Because we are that divine expression of the One here on this earth, expressing the divine through us, as us, and in us. And so I give thanks, and I let it go and let it be. And so it is.
So it is.
Playing catch with my